Before we begin, everything is alleged, fair use, and trigger warning. Some things in this video could possibly be triggering. If you are easily triggered, please click off now. 55-year-old Sean Puffy Diddy Daddy Love Combs was accused of using his fame and fortune to run a decade-long criminal enterprise in which he controlled and manipulated his longtime girlfriend, R&B singer Cassie Ventura, who's 38, and others using violence and threats. He is accused of forcing these women into acting out his twisted fantasies. These events were drug-fueled, freak-off sex marathons that would sometimes go on for days. The jury deliberated and came in with a verdict. He was acquitted of the most serious charges against him, the RICO and sex trafficking. That could have landed him life in prison. He was found guilty only on transportation to engage in prostitution. From my understanding, the max sentence is 10 years and there are 2 charges. They could run them together, who knows. My understanding of the legal system, he will probably get time served in some sort of house arrest or probation, but I do believe in the fall when they reconvene to give the sentence, that's going to be what the sentence is. He had a bond hearing today. He was denied bond. He was trying to get out until sentencing, but they said no. The judge said no on that, so he has to stay in until his court date in the fall. But I am pretty sure he's going to be getting out then. But Tisa Tells appeared on Nancy Grace today. She did the most. Let's take a listen.
Breaking news tonight, Diddy goes to jail after exuberant celebrations outside the courthouse with Diddy fans dousing each other with baby oil, of course. Now a somber tone as Sean Combs heads to jail. After a split verdict earlier in the day where Sean Combs is acquitted of RICO, 2 other counts come into play. Sean Combs convicted on 2 felony counts. There was a massive argument via paper to keep Sean Combs behind bars, the defense fighting tooth and nail to let him out on appeal bond, which means you get out while your conviction is being appealed. Joining me right now, Tisa Tells. You can find her on YouTube at Tisa Tells. Tisa, start at the beginning. Start with the verdict, the split. What happened?
When the jury walked in, everybody was on pins and needles. I'm not going to lie. Everybody in the courtroom expected him to be guilty on at least the sex trafficking. There was a somber tone. They walked in, and when they said, please read, and they said, what do you find ye? On count 1, not guilty. It was a bomb that went off in the courtroom. The public audibly gasped. Nobody was expecting that. There were cheers of joy from Diddy's side. Again, another bombshell went off. People were in utter disbelief. And even Diddy's most ardent supporters did not expect him to get off on the count of sex trafficking with Cassie. Count 3, when they said guilty for transportation of a prostitute, when they said guilty for the mayonnaise, that is when Diddy's team actually cheered. Yeah, that's all right. Okay, come on. Almost like we were watching a pro football game when the other ones came in after.
Now, I want to pause it there for just a second to give a little critique. Now, Tisa Tells, for as long as I remember her doing reporting, she always, she'll speak too fast and stumble over her words. She just needs to slow down a little bit, but she gets really excited. I feel like the reactions from Diddy's side when they said not guilty was inappropriate. I feel like the judge should have, gave instructions before they gave the verdict and told them not to cheer, clap, because you still have victims sitting in the courtroom. You still, at the end of the day, victimized someone's. It was a few people. So there should not have been any cheering. I think that was very inappropriate. And any reactions should have waited until after the full verdict was read. So let's continue.
After that, there were jaws on the ground. It was unbelievable. People were looking at the jury, searching into how they could get a verdict in this day and age. They heard Cassie's mother, the 20,000. They heard Capricorn Clark. They heard about the savage beatings. And it was unbelievable that the only thing they said was prostitution. And that is because Daniel Phillips, in his testimony, actually said, at least I'm guessing that just because, that he got paid to have sex for money. It was a travesty. It was an all-out circus. Everybody, including myself, are running to safety.
I got a question for you, Tisa Tales, and everyone's going to want to know this. You're in a car right now. You had to leave the courthouse. Why?
I had to leave the courthouse because Diddy's supporters were out of control. The first time I ran and did my live, of course, I had 2 armed security guys. Everyone told me, the people in the courthouse is like, make sure you have security. There's a lot of weird stuff going on. It wasn't just me, but I'll tell you what I experienced. Diddy's supporters surrounding me, threatening me, saying that they were going to hurt me. It was a serious situation. It got so bad, and there was so much chaos and violence that they actually had to lock the courtroom down and force the Diddy supporters across the street. It was something myself, the news media, mainstream media, new media have never seen in their lives.
Question. Do y'all believe what Tisa's saying, or do you feel like she's putting 20 on 10? Like, is she exaggerating? Do you really think the Diddy supporters threatened her life? Do you believe that it was necessary for her to have armed guards, take her out? Let me know in the comment section what you feel about that statement and any other statements that were made in this video.
The level, and again, the jurors, I hope to God they know how to sleep at night. Because again, I'm sure they did their duty. But when all that chaos was happening, as I was being threatened and ushered out by armed security people, I thought, this is what the jury did. They sent a signal that it is okay to use violence. It's okay to drug people up. It's okay to live a life of debauchery. It's okay to do whatever you want. Because guess what? If you work hard enough and you have enough money and enough delusional fans and you have ingrained yourself in culture enough that you can do whatever you want. And 12 of your peers will look the other way. Again, this jury was shocking.
Tisa Tales, when you say that Sean Combs supporters threatened you, what were they saying?
They were saying, you effing B, we're going to kill you, you effing B. Apparently I work for the feds. You're a plant. You made this all up because of you. Again, they're not too smart. Because of you, that's how this case got started. We're going to treat you worse than we treated Cassie. Cassie, what we do to you, it's going to be nothing that they had on Cassie. They were screaming. They were yelling. Some people were saying, apologize to Diddy. Apologize to Diddy. Of course, thank goodness we had Lenny and we had Jimmy, 2 of the best armed guards out there. So the one thing is they started foaming like wild dogs because they realized that I was not an unprotected woman. And they realized they could not just do what they felt like. And they started foaming like wild dogs, screaming, their voices cracking in anger that they viscerally wanted to rip me apart. This is why their hero had been exonerated. Even in the best of times, these people that support him, there's something wrong with it. And I gotta tell you, Nancy, it wasn't just me. It was not just me. It was anybody that didn't have a pro Diddy stance from the beginning. That's who suffered.
Joining me in all-star panel, but I want to thank Tisa Tales for what she's doing tonight. Straight back out to Tisa Tales, who has made it to a safe location. Tisa Tales, I want to talk about what happened when the split verdict was announced in the courtroom, and then I want to move to the appeal bond hearing. Let's start with the split verdict. Take it from the very beginning.
The split verdict from the very beginning, when you heard count 1, not guilty, a bomb went off in the courtroom, not guilty. No one could believe it. Sean Diddy's calm side even looked around as if they hadn't heard correctly. No one thought that the jury would actually go this far. Everybody thought that the delay meant that he was actually guilty. When the second count was read, again, jaws dropped open. Diddy leaned back in relief, raised his hands. The defense team was like, yes, I get it. They literally pulled a magic act, okay? They literally pulled a magic act. His team, his side started celebrating, started saying, yeah, when we heard the third count, guilty for the prostitution, okay? Everyone on his side was like, that's okay, that's okay. They were clapping almost like they were watching a football game. When they first came out with the verdict, the prosecution was doing what they were doing. They were looking straight. It is a job, I would assume, to look like they always have it under control. By the time they got to the third count, Maureen Comey looked over at the jury in disbelief. Literally, again, she's always very composed, but even for her to finally look over at the jury on some, are you kidding me? And she just kept looking at the jury as they read the counts. Again, I know the jury did their best, but I cannot feel that justice was served. How can you forget the vicious beatings? How can you forget the $20K the mom had to wire in order for 2 freak-off tapes not to be released? Okay, that's what she thought when she wired it. How can you forget what happened to Bonna being hung over balcony? She might have got the date wrong by a few days, but the point is it happened. How you can forget Deontay Nash and her best friend Carrie, who got a hanger to the head and saw Cassie getting pile driven into the corner of a bed on purpose? How can you forget all that and come back and say, you know what? We don't see anything criminal here. Again, we can argue about the prostitution. Got Diddy on the head. We can argue about the prosecution, what they could have did better, but the fact that the jury chose to overlook all that, it brought me back to what Rob Shooter said weeks ago when I first started joining you, Nancy, that people get starstruck and they want some of that magic. And it makes me wonder, were they starstruck? Were they feeling sorry and trying to protect a legacy for someone that hid their depravity and their evil ways behind it? It makes you wonder. It makes you wonder.
Now we're getting ready to take a listen to this crazy depiction that Tisa gives about the Diddy Daddy Love Combs fans that were outside spraying baby oil on people and threatening her. So she say, let's take a listen.
Tonight, Sean Combs, aka Diddy, goes to jail. That's right. After a last-ditch bid at an appeal bond, he was denied and is going to jail right now as we speak. Joining me, an all-star panel. Back to Tisa Tells joining us. She had to be escorted by armed guards out of the courthouse and leave the scene after she was mobbed by Diddy fans. Explain to me what was happening outside the courthouse. I understand that once a split verdict was announced, the Diddy followers, the Diddy worshipers went cray outside the courthouse, actually dousing each other with baby oil and chanting.
They formed a circle. It looked like a mosh pit of depravity. They were spraying baby oil on each other, jumping around, feeling fantastic. One woman in a pair of Calvin Klein briefs and a bra started jumping up and down, wiggling while they sat there spraying baby oil on her, and the crowd was chanting, "Yay, yay, yay!" Go and hyping them up. It was a monstrous ball of depravity. When I say I was sickened, when I say I shook my head, and when I said, these are the peers. These are the jury of the peers. And it makes me wonder, as the jury goes home and they look at the television sets and they see what their decision cost and what was on the line. It makes me wonder, how can they sleep at night? It was absolute pandemonium. In between the jumping up and down with the baby oil, women willingly, baby oil being squirted on them, and everybody laughing and having a time like Christmas had just come with Santa and the 12 perverted elves. What happened after that was even more amazing, because while that was going on, there were little fires everywhere of these bands of, I don't know if they're incels, if they're idiots, what was going on, looking for anybody they had ever saw make anti-Diddy content. And by anti-Diddy, according to them, it is pro-justice. They were going out their ways to make sure that everybody paid. And again, I said, this is what that jury cost us. It let us know. It sent a message. It's okay to be depraved. It's okay to beat women. It's okay to do drugs. It's okay to do whatever you want. And that jury, when they gave the verdict, signaled that. Again, I'm still coming to terms with how the jury got to this. Thank God this man was denied bail. Thank God.
Now let's hear what Nancy has to say about his charges, what he's been charged with, what he was found guilty. She's going to break down each charge, what it means, and we're also going to hear what the sentence possibly could be in this situation. Let's continue to listen.
Straight out to Sydney Sumner joining us, Crime Stories investigative reporter on the case from the very beginning. Break down the counts for me, Sid.
Nancy, count one is that racketeering RICO conspiracy. Combs was found not guilty on count one. Count 2, 3, 4, and 5 are those sex trafficking and transportation to engage in prostitution charges. So there was one count each for Cassie and Jane on both of those charges. So the jury found that Combs was liable for both transportation to engage in prostitution charges and not guilty on sex trafficking for either Jane or Cassie.
Straight out to Philip Dubé joining us, veteran trial lawyer joining us out of the LA jurisdiction. So Dubé, this is the breakdown. Count 1, racketeering, not guilty. Count 2, sex trafficking by force, fraud, or coercion, as it relates to Cassie Ventura, you know, the woman that was beaten in that video and dragged back to a freak off her, the one that had to get plastic surgery on her face after Diddy beat her up, that one. That's a not guilty. Count 3, transportation to engage in prostitution, as it relates to Cassie. Guilty. That carries a maximum of 10 years. And that comes, I believe, from the sex worker who came in, Philip, and described Sean Combs wearing a burqa from the chin up and butt naked from the chin down, and had him have sex with Cassie on video and directed them. That was across state lines. So guilty on that. Count 4, sex trafficking by force, fraud, or coercion as it relates to Jane, victim 2, not guilty. Count 5, transportation to engage in prostitution as it relates to Jane, guilty. So we got 2 guilties, 3 not guilties, split verdict.
I think he's going to get 3 to 5 years for the transportation for prostitution. He has no criminal record whatsoever. He was exonerated of the RICO charge. He was exonerated of basically the sex trafficking charges, which really were the top counts. And the jury really cut him a break on those charges. The max for transportation is 10 years, but given the fact that he really has no criminal convictions, I'm telling you, he really could ideally be a candidate for parole. When the court denied his request for bail, he was really telegraphing to John Diddy, defense counsel, and the world that he will be getting prison time. There's no question.
From my understanding, it is very rare in federal charges like the RICO charges that you can appeal your original bond and win. He was appealing so he can get a bond to be out until his actual sentencing date in the fall. And that's just something federal courts really don't often do. Now, everything the man said is true. You know, his top charges were dismissed. He pretty much just has like prostitution charges that carry 10 years each. They will probably run them, you know, together and not one behind another, concurrent versus consecutive. He's going to also be calculated good time. They are also going to calculate the fact that he has served some time. So I don't see him in there long at all. I feel like they're going to let him loose with maybe an ankle monitor and probation. But we will see in the fall. When they made the report saying that the followers of Diddy were outside shirtless and getting sprayed with baby oil, I really thought they were exaggerating, but people, they are not. They are not exaggerating when they say that. And Armand actually caught this and posted it on his IG. This shit is ridiculous. It's embarrassing. You need to do better. Y'all need to do better. This is stupid. Y'all look absolutely ridiculous. Now let's take a look at these nut jobs out there having a good old time, praising the fact that, you know, it was kind of a split verdict and they thought Diddy was coming home, as so did I, because I really don't feel like, you know, even with all the evidence that was presented, sometimes too much is too much. Sometimes a lot is too much. It's better to do, I'm not going to say the least of the bare minimum, but just know when you're doing too much. And I don't think they proved what they were trying to prove. And lastly, and most of y'all are not even going to see what I'm saying, but I feel like this is a humiliation ritual. For a long time, Sean Puppy Diddy Daddy Love Combs has been on the top. And you really think this is their first time knowing or hearing about him doing stuff like this? This man has been doing this for years. Trust. Then you have the unaliving of Biggie. He's allegedly behind that. He's allegedly behind the unaliving of Tupac. Also remember the nightclub incident. You guys remember all the things that he's done. This man should have been up underneath the jail. I just think this is a humiliation ritual. He got a tap on his hand, and he's going to be let go. Now, in closing, let's take a look at these idiots.
Would you look one more time at these celebrations going on outside the courthouse? Now, we have gotten this from Armand Wiggins' Insta. He posted it earlier today, and this is after the split verdict was announced. Take a look.
Just why? Why? Stop making us look bad. I don't even have any words. Just stop. Anyways, I hope you all enjoyed the video. Please make sure you like, comment, share, subscribe, hit that notification bell, set it to all, so you'll be notified anytime I go live, upload, or premiere. Please stop the foolishness and be kind to one another. Unapologetically Mika, out.